Welcome to a theoretical discussion about the value proposition canvas, a tool that stands up in its own right and is a vital aspect of any business model. This is me. I started my first business in 1978, a fashion business making printing and designing fabrics to make unique and inspiring shirts. It got me noticed, but not enough to make anything from it. That followed ventures into nightclubbing, a comedy store, and eventually foray into the travel industry. I treated that as an MBA based on practice. Following this, I had a 30-year career in finance, working in multiple investment banks. Redundancy in 2011 changed my path, and all I wanted to do was make use of my experiences, learn and develop opportunities for the next generation and those who know they have more to offer. That is why I started The Weave. This is the team. We're all focused on building a community of practice that takes entrepreneurship and innovation to the next level. We're multi-generational, we come from various different angles and aspects of life, but we all have a passion for the university and for the way that we can bring talent directly to the resources of the micro-business community. We have a passion for growing businesses. We run sprints and open innovation events and social events like a hackathon and then an accelerator. We bring people opportunities to engage with funding, and we work as a community to make things fun. So as a community of practice, we really want to connect those resources and bring about practice and activity that helps people to learn how to be better in business. A business is a value delivery tool. The business model is its rational explanation of that delivery system. Just as a gym provides access to equipment, the real value is the transformation of those who use it. The execution of the delivery system can reach the right audience or it can miss. If it's a hit, we say that there is a business model fit. If the value we offer matches a need and creates a benefit for many people, we say there is product market fit. Don't be fooled that this is an easy process. Many years later, the unicorns of today have spent billions of dollars in turning around or addressing the actual elusive need for that product market fit. It has been a process of iteration and ultimately involved many pivots and changes of direction, but not necessarily a change of the underlying mission. In this session, we will discuss the value proposition canvas, designed by Strategizer and given life by Alex Osterwalder and Yves Pignou, the people who gave us the business model canvas. Your customers are the judge, jury, and executioners of your value proposition. They will be merciless if you don't find fit. Those are the words of Alex Osterwalder, author and academic who delivered the business model canvas and wrote the book, The Business Model Generation. It is a thing of beauty to see and visualize value, the moment when a customer says yes, not the once, but for a long time. To understand its significance, we need to see it within the wider canvas first. A value proposition drives everything. Everything else has a purpose, and that purpose is to drive the value exchange, and in doing so, deliver value to the organization. Get the design wrong, and we go nowhere. We stagnate. Get it right, and we flourish. The value proposition is a measure of the value you intend to create and the experience that your customer wants. The value proposition canvas can be applied to new and existing value propositions and customer segments. In both cases, it will help you structure your thinking and make your ideas that much more tangible. This is the value proposition canvas. It's downloadable from strategizer.com, or you can buy it online in a book form. I think you can get those from Amazon. This is a guide on how you can approach it. Like all things within the canvas, approaching various things from different angles, starting places, can often stimulate new ideas, stimulate new bits of thinking. If you approach it ultimately from the customer side first, and you start thinking about the jobs that the customer that needs to be done, that will help you visualize and format this idea of what they are looking for in terms of gains and the kind of pains that you are addressing. So when we start with the customer jobs, we ask ourselves, what does the customer want to be delivered and what they want to happen? Consider the big jobs first, then capture those smaller jobs that can increase some of the value. Customer pains, the pains before, during and after the job is done. Identify them. What are those pains, right? What are they experiencing in that regard? What is it that's standing in the way of their progression? What can they be doing during when we actually start to deliver some of those particular gain or pain relievers? And ultimately, after the job is done, what would that lift, what would that gain be? So the customer gains capture those benefits and wants of a customer, right, before and during and after delivery as well. So the value proposition, what the product is, the service is, the value proposition is built around. Capture what you deliver or intend to deliver. How does the product or service alleviate the pain and create gains for each customer? That's an overall kind of perspective within it. And often what we find is that we have to keep going back. We have to keep asking those particular questions. We have to elevate the conversations that we're having with our customers in order that we can fully embrace and understand exactly what it's all about. So it's probably worth asking this question. So what makes for a good value proposition? I think there are a number of different things. In fact, we can probably identify around 10 of them in this particular instance. The first is that it sits at the heart of a great business model. And that's really vital because if you go back to the overall canvas, that value proposition is integral, it's central to the way that things are delivered. So without a good value proposition, we're going nowhere in that regard. So we need it to be at the heart of a great business model. Secondly, it's directed to the most important tasks that customer faces. The things at the end of the day that customer really truly wants to happen through that particular piece of engagement. It's not peripheral, it's central. It's dynamically embedded in that particular moment, what the customer faces. Thirdly, it's important, really important. And the customer is willing to pay a lot of money for that particular piece of delivery, or at least commit over a long period of time, maybe smaller amounts. But at the end of the day, it has to be commensurate with the value that customer ultimately is going to experience through the delivery process. Fourthly, it's a problem that's maybe a legacy of failure. Right? It's addressing something at the end of the day that they haven't managed to overcome through what they're engaging with today. So that legacy of failure or something entirely unserved, an area or an aspect of their lives that they know they would like some form of transformation, and yet there is nothing out there that can really manifestly deliver that. Fifthly, once engaged with, it actually works well. So this is where the design of the overall delivery system really comes together. Okay, that they can understand it, they can access it, they can pay for it. It's frictionless in that regard, and it works really well for them. It gives them the things and the experience that they're really looking for. Next, it delivers at multiple levels, right? Practically, but also emotionally. So it connects with them. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel good about themselves, good about you, good about the problem that they are addressing. And ultimately, from that perspective, there is that human connection, that sense of I need this. There's a dependency that you are creating. The customer also sees the value as integral to their overall success. In their life, in their job, in what they're doing, as a business-to-business value proposition, which exists beyond that realm of the consumer, but the business-to-business, at the end of the day, your delivery makes them be able to achieve what they want to do. So we've got a business around where we are that makes components for aircraft engines. Without those specific components, the engine doesn't work. So the success that the buyers see by engaging with that particular piece of delivery is operating success. They can sell their engines at the right price and at the right level. Next, no one delivers exactly what this delivers. Okay, so it's unique. There is an element of differentiation that your value proposition provides over and above everybody else's. In the world of tutoring, a business that I used to run years ago, but ultimately in the world of tutoring, the value proposition that we created was one which embedded coaching, embedded a lot more personalization into the models, worked with the young people in multiple different ways, addressed their learning requirements, their learning needs. There were plenty of people out there delivering tutoring, but what we were doing was looking at the individual learner as a holistic piece of delivery, and we found something that fitted to them. We matched the right people together in that way. Next, competitors cannot emulate the secret sauce. Okay, Coca-Cola built their entire reputation on having something which was unrepeatable. Everybody tried in some way or other to emulate that, but they failed. They produced something which just did not meet the taste agenda that that particular product gave. In your world, in our world, we're always looking for that secret sauce, something at the end of the day that gives us a barrier around what we can do. It does something more, but once we have that information, there is a moat around it that other people cannot access or deliver upon. That sauce, and finally, I guess the next bit is the sauce itself is hotter, spicier, and tastier than anything anybody else can provide. There is something again which raises it to that next level. It's the brand, it's an area of it, that piece of delivery that excites, that resonates, that delivers something specifically more than anybody would actually have got from anybody else. So when we're thinking about it, that fit, we've got to understand clearly who that customer is that we are designing it for, and ultimately what they truly want from this particular process. Practically, when we work with the canvas, there are similar rules to what there are in the BMC, right? We do not write directly onto a canvas because ultimately we want that canvas to be dynamic. We want to be able to lift things off on it and shift things around. We want to put in new priorities. We want to ask ourselves those questions. We want to understand that narrative. So we use sticky notes and staties. Staties are things that have got a slight magnetic feel. You can again get them from via Strategizer and through there. But ultimately, staties or sticky notes, they give you that flexibility, that dynamicness of being able to engage with the canvas in a much more fluid way. We focus in on priorities and things which are really, really important. We use different colors to denote different areas of thinking. What is the current situation could be in one color. What could be or what should be might be in another color, so that we can differentiate today from tomorrow. We can differentiate the existing from the innovation. And ultimately, from that perspective, we have the ability again to start to identify that fluidity in the way the canvas can be used as part of our overall strategy. If you've got an overpopulated canvas with loads and loads of stuff, we need to strip it back. We need to make it clear, because what we really want with any form of visualization and canvas is the explicit relationship between what we see and the visualization of that particular journey, that particular story. So there has to be a narrative, something that we can extract from what we're seeing within the canvas. That's why when we use words, it can become quite myopic. It can put us into a particular box. But actually, when we create images and we use visualization, we can add to them, and people will interpret what they see in different ways. We're not trying to force people into and conditioning them into seeing something rigid and inflexible. What we want is people to see something that they can interpret and bring together. So as a discussion piece, a canvas like this really does open up the conversation. So better than words, much better than words are images. If you cannot visualize the customer and the transformative power of the offer that you are creating, then the canvas is not sharp enough and it needs to be sharpened further. Those conversations that you want to have, they need to happen more frequently. We have to understand that. They have to be more inclusive, and this tool is a really valuable tool to be able to deliver that. So this is what potentially a stripped back canvas could look like. Much clearer, much cleaner, an understanding of what the value proposition is and ultimately what that customer segment is aiming or experiencing in that particular area. So there is an approach that will help you focus on the design and the delivery through canvas. And we look at that from the point of view of the needs of the customer, right? What pains do they experience and how does this drive the needs? How do we approach the solution? Okay, what benefits does the customer gain? So there is the needs, the approach, the benefits, and ultimately, right, how we can quantify and qualify those benefits. So is there an outcome that we are looking to understand in that regard? So we can use these canvases as a strategic tool to help us drive that value proposition forward, to help us drive and create that kind of level of fit that we're really looking for. So there is always this bit about, do we or can we extract a story from the canvas? Can we say who the customer is clearly? Can we understand and appreciate their pains? Can we really understand what success really would look like for them? And that job, that piece of transformation that ultimately we are trying to apply, will help them, okay, gain something from this, relieve those pains, and actually participate in a product or a service. The inclusion as well is around competition. If we consider the competition at every level, right, so the approach, the benefits, the needs, and the competition, that allows us to actually identify where that clear blue water exists between ourselves and what other people are doing. So if we look at that in a way, those four areas, approach, benefits, and needs, and the competition, is the formation, if you like, of an expression, and we call that the napkin pitch. It's an A4 sheet of paper that you can divide, right, into 4 quadrants, and you can address very briefly what that particular area of concern is around that particular customer. So the inclusion of competition allows us to understand how we offer something unique, something different. Where do we stand versus the way the customer solves the problem today? Is that different enough to overcome the inevitable inertia for change? And you can't overestimate how hard it is for new entrants to arrive into an existing market space. And are they creating enough value over and above what's already being delivered that is actually then allowing people to transition into the value that you are creating? And ultimately, that inertia needs to be overcome. So that's really where, again, that sharpness and that focus and that clarity starts to manifest itself with that particular canvas and how we can deliver it. So as you guessed, there is clearly a value proposition for a customer, and we're making generalized statements around who that customer truly is. And it's really important to understand that we need to know and we need to appreciate there is a value proposition for one customer, but there could equally be another value proposition for another customer. So there is, in a way, a personalization, but what we want to be able to reach are customers that share similarities, customers that are united behind the kind of job that they want to get done, the kind of pain that they are experiencing. We all experience things in different ways, but there is a genericness that we can tap into that can make the value proposition appear appealing enough to a wide enough audience for us to actually start to deliver some inherent value in that way. So what we want to look at next is what we see as being the ideal client. So this ideal client is a bit of a like I say, a bit of a misnomer in a lot of ways, because the ideal client is not just one person. It has to be a part of a tribe, a clan, a wider audience. But an ideal client is someone who finds the perfect solution to their problem or needs in the service or the products that we provide as our company or organization. So the ideal client will be proved to be loyal, right, to us. They will be a frequent user or frequent buyer of the product and service. And ultimately, they want to stimulate that kind of recommendation and friends to their friends and their colleagues. And if we deliver and focus in on the kind of experience that we want to deliver, then ultimately we should be able to tap into that kind of referral mechanism that we want to deliver. So one tool that's really good to get us into that mindset of who is our client, who is our ideal client, are personas. So personas are simply avatars, representations of clients. If we already have clients, we can extract some of those patterns, some of those areas of similarity between each various segment of that our customer base, and understand how our value proposition is touching those people in a similar way. So we can, if you like, derivate those, that our client base, into those individual personas, those kind of generic looking ideas. The reason we want to do that is that if we have a wide enough audience within that, we have the ability to be able to communicate our value proposition in a targeted and meaningful way. Persona design or persona work is challenging, and there are lots of ways of approaching this, and there is a depth to it. You can go really, really deeply into the psychology of the person, and we would encourage you to certainly think of it in that particular light, how you tap into this particular model individual. But equally, within a wider customer base, there will be different personas, people in lots of different ways, distinguished between themselves. And ultimately, we need a language that reaches people in a particular style or a particular way. If it's too generic, then what happens is it overshoots. It goes over people's heads. They do not see themselves as being represented. Therefore, they turn their back on their value proposition, and they do not see the value in it. Now, that creates huge problems in terms of personalization, because personalization, up until the advent of AI to some degree, has always been a really, really complicated process. Being bespoke has always meant costing us money. It also meant being unscalable, not being able to grow the value that we're trying to provide to a wide enough audience. This is where that alignment between the value that we provide and the customer that we deliver has to be broad enough that it becomes meaningful within the delivery of the business. So this is a traditional kind of persona builder, if you like, but there are loads of different out there. You can look them up online, you can find them through lots of different things in that regard. But ultimately, they ask us to paint a picture of the individuals that are representative of segments within our customer base. Now, if we haven't got customers, the challenge is, who are we going after, right? Who are there? So there's a kind of almost going back to that idea of where do we start on the canvas. There is almost this element of what are we capable of delivering, and who would see value in that particular process. Now we can design a person that we think at the end of the day that would see the greatest value in that particular process. And it would help us then to then identify who that customer is, where they're going to be, what do we believe they're going to be shopping for, where are they going to be hanging out, their personality type, the kind of gains and the pains that they're experiencing, the age, the whole kind of understanding of who they are. And ultimately, this just helps us to create this deep dive into that particular individual. So it's really worthwhile that there are multiple personas, and I would always recommend that people have at least 4 or 5 of these in their armory of people that they believe exist within their communities, within their customer base as well. And then finding the value proposition that chimes with them, running lots of different potential adverts, potential landing pages that resonate with your audience, so you can build up an idea of where that fit and where that kind of understanding will exist between ourselves and the business. So this concept of desirability is something huge. We touched on it in the business model canvas when we looked at that. We spoke about desirability being at the front end of what we're about to achieve. And it's that mash between the needs, the essentials, and the wants, the benefits, the nice to haves that come together that create something at the end of the day that is really desirable. When we're building businesses, when we're building value propositions, it's always great to start with that moment of discovery. Let's immerse ourselves into the customer. Let's immerse ourselves into that particular individual and start asking ourselves some really strong questions to understand how desirability can be featured within the design of this value proposition. So one of the tools that we use, it's a different canvas to the value proposition canvas, but I always think it's attributable to the same kind of mindset, and that is the empathy map. That is positioning our customers in the center and stepping into their world and asking ourselves some clarity, some real questions around that particular person. And that will help us hone and develop the value proposition that we're trying to create within that particular space. And it will start to think about those pains and those gains in perhaps a little bit more detail about the secondary aspects of how they experience them, how they manifest themselves in what they do. So an empathy map, you can again download these online, but ultimately they will provide you with that kind of insight, that kind of understanding that you can then put back into the value proposition canvas and really get to understand how they mash together in that regard. And then what we want to also be kind of clear about, and this is again something that we can explore more when we look at the value proposition in itself, is how people experience that through the business model. And if the business model is that realization, that manifestation of the customer experience, the customer delivery, right, then we want to know through those particular touch points around what we're doing whether we are actually delivering the right things. So the customer journey is an output of ultimately the design of the value proposition that we are creating for that particular customer segment. We want people to experience something which is wonderful, which wows them, which gets them to come back and go through that repeat process. And we want them to understand in that they are gaining some form of overall experience in what they're doing. And then what we want to do is we want to take that journey ourselves, and we really want to tap into that whole kind of gambit of what it's like, those touch points that we create right the way from the beginning, that awareness of what's missing, awareness of an appreciation of I need something in that particular journey. There is that kind of awareness around it, right the way through to the consideration and then ultimately the purchasing side and how we stay connected to them. Grab a piece of paper, grab a journey board, start mapping out that particular journey. Take the journey of the customer and then ultimately align that back to where the value proposition wants to be delivered and whether we're actually creating the right delivery tool to actually deliver that. So everything around this is all interconnected. The value proposition sits at the heart of the business model. The business model is the delivery system. The customer journey is the outcome and the experience. The customer avatars are the people that we're aiming to design the value proposition for, and then ultimately we're bringing it all together. So I hope that gives you an idea, a theoretical overview of the value proposition canvas. We're going to be looking at it in more detail and looking at some of the practical examples of how we can apply it and what that ultimately might generate in terms of ideas and a process of facilitation. So my name has been James Cracknell, and this has been a delivery on behalf of the Weave, and I look forward to catching up with you in November. Thank you very much for your time.